This is the Hoka Clifton 8. It's a daily trainer that's been at the very core of Hoka's road shoe offerings. This year, in the 8th version, Hoka wanted to focus on maintaining a light and smooth run while also improving on durability. So how has this shoe held up over the last 100 miles? It's time to lace up the Clifton 8 and take it for a run. .63 miles, 9 minutes, 44 seconds per mile, 131 beats per minute today, going for a much needed, nice and easy run along the lakefront in the Hoka Clifton 8. Now with today's miles, I got this shoe to the 100 mile mark, but before I give you my thoughts on this shoe, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that Hoka sent to me for the purpose of review. However, nobody's paying me to make this video or to use the shoe, and no one's gonna get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Hoka Clifton 8 after 100 miles. First, let's go over some specs for this shoe. This is a 29 millimeter stack height shoe with a 5 millimeter drop, giving us 24 millimeters of stack height in the forefoot. In this midsole, it looks like there's kind of two parts to it, but it's all one kind of foam. It's Hoka's compression molded EVA, and there's just a bunch of it here. And then up front, there's Hoka's early stage Meta Rocker, which is just some shaping and some geometry in the shoe, so that way it tends to roll a little bit off of the toes and helps pick that heel up as you're going through your foot strike. On the outsole, they've reconfigured the way that they're laying out the rubber. Durability has been a concern that a lot of Hoka customers have been mentioning over the years, and so they're really trying to work on that for this year. So the overall design pattern is very similar to that which we saw in the 7, but it looks like this year they've added a couple of more of these rubber pods along the outsole in some of the areas where the exposed compression molded EVA of the Hoka Clifton 7 took the most beating. On the upper, we have an engineered mesh upper that is made out of 100% vegan materials. The mesh is nice and breathable, very stretchy and comfortable. The fit has been fantastic for me. And then as we move further back into the tongue and on the foot cage, the tongue is a very puffy, very plush and padded tongue. In the summer months, it was a little bit of a sweat sponge, but now that things are getting a lot cooler, it's not as much of a problem for me. For those of you that like comfortable, puffy, plush tongues though, you're definitely going to like this one. Moving around to the heel collar, there is a decent amount of padding on all the parts that are going to be touching your foot. Not an excessive amount. After all, this is still a daily trainer, and I feel like the amount of padding is about right for that kind of use case. There is a little bit of extra padding up in here in this little Achilles flare that Hoka is calling a pull tab, but it is, comfortable to the touch and to hold, but it's not something that ever actually touches your foot or your Achilles or your ankle or anything like that. In this heel cup, there is quite a bit of structure. It's a very rigid heel cup back in here with the idea that it's going to help keep your heel locked in place and prevent it from moving around so much. And to aid that, there's also this kind of like molding of the foam to give kind of rails on each side, so that way it not only looks like there's more foam, but also it helps kind of keep the heel in a little bit of a channel, so again it's not sliding around too much. Altogether, this shoe comes in at a relatively light weight of 8.8 ounces and 250 grams. So what was it like to run in the Clifton 8 over the last 100 miles? This shoe is lighter and smoother than I think it's ever been. I feel like that's a trend that they've been pushing for the Clifton. I never ran in the original Clifton, but the earliest memories I have of the Clifton are back when Hoka was like marketing it as a marshmallow, and they had like a literal marshmallow mascot that would run around in the Hoka Cliftons at the time. And back then I felt like the shoe was more of like a max cushion shoe that you could take for more of your daily training runs. And this was also happening at a time when everyone was still kind of in like the minimalist shoe movement. So it was quite a departure from anything that was out there on the market. Over the years, it has trimmed down and kind of focused itself into becoming not a max cushion shoe that you could do daily training with. It's just become a really great daily training shoe that has a little bit more cushion than kind of the average daily trainer might. But for those of you who are marathon training or logging a lot of road miles or light trail miles, this is pretty much the kind and amount of cushion that you want and have been looking for in your daily trainers. And I think the Hoka is really like kind of honed in on that sweet spot. And I think they're doing a really great job with it. It's a Goldilocks of foam. I know a lot of people are thinking like the compression molded EVA is like dead and it's old technology and all of that. But I still really like it and it is working for me. It's not too bouncy. It's not too squishy. It's just right in the middle of Goldilocks of foams. It just feels like a running shoe should feel like underfoot. The way that I like to use this shoe is as my daily trainer shoe. So my everyday runs, my easy runs, even up to my long runs, this is a shoe that I have no problem bringing along. It's also now in a nimble enough of a package that I feel like if there is something like strides included in the run, it's something that I could definitely bring along with me. Or if it's a longer workout with some pace changes, like it's a fartlek type of workout, I think that the shoe still is up to the task of picking up the pace a little bit for those kinds of workouts as well. I've also been using it as a recovery day shoe like I did today. Yesterday, I had a 5K time trial. Today, I just wanted to get out there, get the legs moving. Really wasn't worried about pace at all and just enjoyed the run. And this shoe was a perfect choice for that as well. In terms of how the foam is behaving, I do think that it's a little less squishy than it like kind of first is right out of the box. And that's kind of one of the drawbacks of compression molded EVA. It does change quite a bit over the lifespan of the shoe. But I think that right now at the 100-mile mark, it's a really good place for this foam. It just feels maybe not as kind of exciting and dynamic as it did right out of the box, but it's a nice smooth foam and it's just very agreeable for any kind of run that you really want to throw at it. Let's move to the outsole where there is quite a bit of exposed foam. Now, I think that the changes that Hoka made, which were subtle, just adding like a couple of pods more of this rubber to the outsole makes a world of difference. And I think this shoe is holding up really well. I think I would be hard pressed to really guess that this was a 100-mile shoe unless I looked really, really close to it. And to do that, I look in kind of the areas that I usually experience the most wear, which is on the outer part of the heel and right underneath the pads of the foot. And so in those areas, there's a little bit of wear on the rubber that I'm able to see. And there's a little bit that I'm able to see right here under the pads of the foot as well. But I think it's about where it needs to be for a 100-mile shoe. I don't think it's a super ultra durable rubber configuration, but it's also not super soft and wearing out unduly quickly as well. I think it's holding up exactly about what I would expect and want to see from rubber that's on an outsole of a shoe. In terms of the exposed foam, I think because they made those changes to where that rubber is, I think that there's very little kind of damage to the exposed foam that I'm seeing. In fact, in a lot of the areas, I'm still seeing a lot of like the etchings that were original to like the shoe when it was brand new, and not a lot of it is wearing down or scuffed. So I feel like we're getting the benefit of having exposed foam in terms of it's lighter because there's no rubber that has to cover it up. And we get to feel more of that midsole performing rather than it being dampened by the rubber outsole underneath it. So very impressed with how the outsole is behaving, and they're managing to keep the weight just at about the same weight as last year. I actually think it's a tenth of an ounce heavier than last year, but given that they've added more material in terms of rubber to the outsole, I feel like it's a small price to pay for that added amount of durability. Moving to the upper, the fit has been fantastic for me and it's holding up really well. The material isn't stretching out or showing signs of wear and tear. It looks like a brand new shoe to me, and it's very comfortable for me to put my feet in on like a recovery day, for example. So on a day where even in just kind of my casual shoes walking around, or just even sitting here at this table barefoot or just in socks, my feet are not throbbing, but they are letting me know that they got beat up a little bit during the time trial yesterday and some of the long runs that I've been doing. But when I put my feet into the Clifton 8, they felt fine. There were no complaints from the toes when I put my foot into this shoe. So it's been fitting well, and that fit has been holding up over time. So overall, I'm really happy with the Clifton 8. It was making me happy right out of the box, and it continues to make me very happy to have this shoe in my rotation, even after 100 miles. I would venture to say that this is probably the best Clifton that Hoka has ever made. Again, I ran in the re-released Clifton one. I didn't run in the original Clifton. There's something about that shoe that makes runners crazy. I'm coming to the Clifton from someone who ran in lots of other daily trainers first, and I'm now looking at this shoe as a daily trainer, and I'm absolutely loving what they're doing with the Clifton at Hoka. So those are my thoughts on the Clifton 8 after 100 miles. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, or better yet, feel free to stop by the live stream that I do Monday through Friday right here on YouTube. I'd love to talk to you guys in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?